The gleam of the metal fence was the first thing that hit me. A cruel, unnatural barrier slicing through the familiar green of my fields. Rebecca Steele, the HOA president, stood beside it, a triumphant smirk on her face, the single key to the padlocked gate twirling on her finger like a tiny mocking pendulum. "Your disgusting vegetables are lowering our property values," she declared, her voice as cold and sharp as the new fence. I slammed on my brakes, dust swirling around my truck. 5 days of burying my mother of forced smiles and whispered condolences had left me hollowed out. All I wanted was the quiet solace of my farm, the feel of soil between my fingers. Instead, I found this. I lunged out of the truck, leaving, the door open, the scent of fresh metal and disturbed earth filling my lungs. A scream clawed its way up my throat, a raw, guttural sound, but I bit it back. Rebecca's face flickered, a fleeting hint of surprise replaced by that self-satisfied smile. She wanted me to lose control. She wanted a scene. 8 years in corporate. Law had taught me patience, taught me that the quiet ones often held the deadliest weapons. "Good afternoon, Mr. Foster," she purred, the false pleasantry a thin veneer over her malice. "I see you've noticed our community improvement project. The Homeowners Association voted unanimously in your absence." She handed me a single sheet of paper, a bureaucratic dagger disguised as a notice. Bylaws, citations, technical jargon about non-conforming agricultural usage. My farm, my sanctuary, was an eyesore. I took a deep breath, the lawyer in me already, dissecting her words, cataloging the procedural violations. "Rebecca," I said, my voice measured, the same tone I used to dismantle opposing counsel. "I've reviewed our HOA covenant extensively. There's nothing that prohibits growing vegetables on private property. This fence crosses land I legally own and restricts access to land I'm entitled to use. I'm asking you politely to remove it immediately." Her smile widened, a shark scenting blood. "Actually, if you check Section 12, Paragraph 9 of the original covenant, it clearly states that all gardens must be decorative in nature and maintain the aesthetic character of the community. Your farm is neither decorative nor in keeping with our community standards. The board has simply decided to begin enforcing this provision." She gestured to the padlock, the only access point to my livelihood. "The gate is temporary while you make appropriate changes. I'm afraid I don't have the key with me. You'll need to submit a formal remediation plan at next month's board meeting." As she walked away, her heels clicking on the pavement like a ticking clock counting down my crop's survival, I stood frozen. 3 years ago, I'd traded a 6-figure salary and a corner office for this land, for the quiet satisfaction of growing things with my hands. I'd poured my savings, my sweat, my hope into this farm. Now everything I'd built was dying behind a metal cage. I approached the fence, my fingers curling around the cool links. The afternoon sun cast long, sharp shadows from the metal bars across my lettuce beds. Plants that needed full sun now languishing in artificial shade. "I'm sorry," I whispered to them, the words feeling ridiculous but necessary. "I couldn't protect you, but she just built a wall on the wrong side. That wall will now block the wind for my counterattack." The sun was setting by the time I finished, walking the perimeter of the fence, measuring its exact placement. 6 inches inside my property line. Careful, deliberate. I called the county permit office before they closed. No construction permit filed. The clerk mumbled something about HOA exemptions for temporary structures. Rebecca had found her loophole. By the time I could challenge it, my crops would be gone. That night I couldn't sleep. Bank statements, invoices, the mortgage, all reminders of how financially vulnerable I was. This wasn't a hobby. This was my life. Rebecca knew it. She'd timed her attack perfectly. I spent the night hunched over documents, the deed, the covenant, the surveys. She was technically right about the decorative gardens clause, but it had never been enforced. Selective enforcement. A personal vendetta. By morning, 2 acres of my crops were slowly dying behind an illegal fence, $30,000 of potential income withering in the sun, and a choice. Surrender, or find the loophole that would bury Rebecca and her precious HOA for a man who'd once specialized in finding contractual escape hatches for Fortune 500 companies. The choice wasn't hard. It was time to dust off skills I'd thought I'd left behind. The monthly HOA meeting wasn't just a meeting. It was the battlefield. And I was about to remind everyone in Westfield Estates what happened when you fenced in a lawyer. The air in the community center felt thick with unspoken tension. Folding chairs were lined up like pews, facing the podium where Rebecca Steele, sharp and unyielding, stood ready to deliver her sermon of suburban compliance. I arrived early, a ghost from my past life in my one remaining suit, the fabric a little tight across shoulders, built for farm work, not boardrooms. Rebecca's eyes widened, just a fraction, when she saw me. Good. Let her see the lawyer. Not just the farmer. Let her wonder. The room filled. Faces I recognized. The Johnsons, who'd loved my tomatoes. The Millers, whose kids I'd let pick strawberries, now avoided my gaze. They were here to watch, not to intervene. Rebecca called the meeting. To order at precisely 7. Mundane business, then the main event, my farm. Photos flashed on the screen. My rows, orderly to me, looked chaotic from her carefully chosen angles. Close-ups of a wheelbarrow, a stack of trellises. As you can see, Rebecca announced, the laser pointer dancing across the images. The Foster property has become a commercial farming operation in clear violation of our residential zoning and HOA covenants. The board has taken temporary measures to contain the issue, while Mr. Foster prepares a remediation plan. She turned to me, a tight smile plastered on her face. Would you like to address the community, Mr. Foster? I stood, buttoning my jacket. Thank you. My voice was calm, steady. As many of you know, I moved here 3 years ago to establish a small-scale organic garden. What you may not know is that I grow heirloom varieties specifically chosen for their nutritional value and disease resistance. I supply vegetables to 3 local restaurants and donate 15% of my harvest to the county food bank. This is not a commercial farm. It's a personal garden that I share with our community. I laid out the facts. The selective enforcement, the other vegetable gardens in the neighborhood, the procedural irregularities of the fence installation. The room was silent, but I saw a few hesitant nods. Then Rebecca took over. The board appreciates your position, Mr. Foster, but the decision has been made. Your operation differs substantially from decorative kitchen gardens in scale and purpose. Additionally, the board is implementing a new community image impact fee for properties with non-conforming elements. In your case, that will be $300 monthly until compliance is achieved. She smiled sweetly. We're simply protecting everyone's property values. I'm sure you understand. The vote to uphold the fence decision was almost unanimous. Only one board member, Thomas Wilson, a retired engineer who lived across from Rebecca, abstained. As people filtered out, I noticed Thomas lingering by the water cooler. I approached him, thanking him for his abstention. He glanced around nervously. I don't have the courage to stand against her publicly, he admitted in a low voice. But I don't have the cruelty to stand with her either. She's done this before. Targets anyone who challenges her authority. The Hendersons installed solar panels without her aesthetic approval. She made their lives so miserable they sold at a loss and moved away. Be careful. Over the next week, I researched Rebecca Steele. Public records painted a picture of a woman obsessed with control. A failed real estate developer, the HOA presidency was her miniature kingdom. She'd systematically replaced board members with loyalists, rewritten bylaws. The pattern was clear. Identify threats, isolate them, eliminate them. Thomas proved an unexpected ally. Sitting on my front porch one evening, sipping iced tea, he leaned forward. There's something odd about the property lines in this development, he said, his voice barely a whisper. When I was on the architectural committee, years ago, I noticed discrepancies in the original survey maps. Nobody paid attention because it didn't affect the home lots, but with your situation... He didn't finish, but his meaning was clear. A loophole. As the sun set, casting long shadows across my imprisoned crops, a flicker of hope ignited. Rebecca, Didn't realize she'd just declared war on someone who made a living finding loopholes. In the days that followed, the harassment began. My mailbox left open in the rain, garbage cans tipped over, a neighborhood watch flyer warning about suspicious activity at my address. Petty annoyances, Rebecca's fingerprints all over them. I documented everything, cameras installed, a detailed log maintained. I reached out to other homeowners who'd felt her wrath. Their stories confirmed a pattern of selective, discriminatory enforcement. Meanwhile, my crops withered. I managed to save a few by reaching through the chain links, but most were beyond help. Each dying plant was a small death of the dream I'd built. Rebecca was attacking my livelihood, my identity. But she was also awakening something I'd buried deep inside, the relentless legal strategist. One afternoon, I watched through my kitchen window as Rebecca gave a tour to a county property assessor, pointing animatedly at my fenced-in farm. Thomas confirmed it. She was requesting a special property reassessment, claiming my agricultural plight was lowering property values. She wouldn't stop until I was financially broken, forced to sell. Her assault was escalating. As I watched them, I made a decision. It was time to stop playing defense. It was time to hunt for the leverage that would turn this war in my favor. The county records office smelled of dust and forgotten paper, a scent I once associated with tedious discovery, but now carried the promise of salvation. Walter Bennett, the records clerk, a stooped man with reading glasses perched on his nose, eyed me with the weary suspicion of someone who'd seen a lifetime of citizens hunting for ways to fight City Hall. But when I explained my situation, something shifted. Been here 40 years, son. I remember when your property was part of the old Franklin farm, he said, pulling out massive ledgers, unfolding yellowed survey maps. Westfield Estates was built on land that was originally meant for a different purpose. The developer had to make some accommodations with the County Planning Commission. The way he lingered on accommodations spoke volumes of backroom deals and overlooked regulations. We spent hours comparing documents, tracing lines, examining easements. The breakthrough came with a forgotten file, original highway planning from 30 years ago. A small parcel, 0.3 acres, set aside for a county access road that was never built. That parcel included the land where the gate to my field now stood. It wasn't my property, but crucially, it wasn't the HOA's either. It belonged to the county, an orphaned piece of land. County's been doing inventory of unused parcels, Walter explained, showing me a list of properties scheduled for public auction. Budget shortfalls. They're selling anything not actively used. My heart hammered. The parcel number was on the list, scheduled for sale in less than 2 weeks. Rebecca had been bluffing about HOA jurisdiction over my access point. The gate sat on county land. I called Natalie Morgan, an environmental lawyer I knew. She reviewed the documents. The county auction is your opportunity, she agreed. But she looked at me, her gaze sharp. Jack, are you sure you want to play this game with the very rules you once left behind? I thought you left law because you were tired of technicalities and loopholes. I stared out her window at the city skyline. I'm not returning to my old profession, I said finally. I'm just using what they taught me, correctly. I didn't leave because I thought the law was wrong. I left because I was using it for the wrong things, protecting corporations instead of people. This is different. Natalie seemed satisfied. She helped me prepare for the auction. There's something else you should know, she added, reviewing a document. Someone else has already filed a notice of intent to bid on this parcel. The interested party is registered as Steel Property Holdings. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. Stalked. Every move I made, she was already there, stealing. The oxygen. Rebecca had found the same loophole. Maybe she'd always known. The fence had just been the opening move in a longer game. Time was running out. My crops were yellowing, withering. $30,000 dying before my eyes. I watched through the chain links as Rebecca supervised workers installing concrete footings for fence posts, making the temporary barrier permanent. She caught me watching, smiled. Victorious. That evening I called my sister Amanda. She'd always thought I was crazy for leaving law, but she'd supported me. I need help, I admitted, explaining the situation. I can cover about half. I need to borrow the rest. I have no idea how high the bidding might go. You know I've got your back, she said without hesitation. But Jack, this is getting personal. Is it worth it? You could sell and start over. It's not about the money anymore, I told her, watching the sunset paint my imprisoned field orange. It's about standing up to a bully. Nobody's ever done it successfully with Rebecca. If I don't fight now, she'll just keep doing this. We formulated a plan. Amanda would create an LLC to hide my involvement, a bidding strategy to secure the parcel without revealing our connection. The auction was in 3 days. If Rebecca got that land, my farm was permanently cut off. But while she was planning a fence, I was planning a fortress. The legal skills I'd used to protect corporate profits were about to be repurposed for something that actually mattered. And this time, I'd be on the right side of justice. Walter, it turned out, was a treasure trove of local knowledge. Over coffee, he shared details no official record would contain. Rebecca's husband was on the planning commission back in the early 2000s, he revealed. Resigned under a cloud. Whispers about permits being fast-tracked for developers, who hired his architectural firm. The Steeles lost a lot in the crash. Money, status. That HOA presidency is all she has left. Her obsession with control wasn't just about aesthetics. It was about clinging to the last vestige of her former power. As I left, Walter handed me a faded folder. Might want to look through these too. Historical water rights documentation dates back to 1876. That night, reviewing the documents, I found it. Grandfathered agricultural water rights that predated the HOA and county zoning. Legally separate from the land. Unrestricted by residential covenants. I verified it with the County Water Authority. My property retained a special historical designation. This was a Second Avenue. Redundancy. Meanwhile, Natalie was refining our auction strategy. We need to understand how she'll approach this, she said, sketching on her whiteboard. She'll come prepared to outbid anyone, but she'll be cost-sensitive. This land has no development value. Her motivation is purely strategic, controlling your access. Our plan was counterintuitive. Amanda would bid aggressively, driving up the price, without any intention of winning. While she drew Rebecca's fire, I would quietly pursue a different parcel, a larger one, adjoining my property from the east. One Rebecca likely hadn't even considered. The morning of the auction, my phone rang at 6:30. Dave Henderson from Farm Table Restaurant. Jack, I hate to do this, he began, his voice strained. We've received a report claiming your operation uses non-compliant organic fertilizing procedures. Until it's cleared up, we need to suspend our standing order. My stomach plummeted. Someone had filed a complaint with the health department. The timing was no coincidence. Rebecca had escalated, attacking my livelihood directly. I called my other clients. All had received similar anonymous reports. By 10 o'clock, I'd lost every restaurant contract. Standing in my kitchen, staring at the stack of cancellations, a wave of despair washed over me. I'd built this farm to escape corporate games. Now I was back in one with dirt under my nails instead of a tie. For a dark moment, I considered giving up, selling, leaving. Amanda arrived around noon. She saw my face, saw the cancellations. Her face hardened. You used to win in courtrooms because of conviction, she said, gripping my shoulders. Why lose in the fields because of fear? This is exactly why you need to see this through. She's counting on you giving up. She was right. By afternoon, I'd discovered the petition circulating among neighbors, the letters encouraging them to sign against my eyesore farm, the county auction, fluorescent lights, uncomfortable chairs, Lot 17, 0.3 acres, minimum bid $5,000. Rebecca raised her paddle immediately. Amanda waited. 2 other bidders. Then Amanda entered the fray. 20 minutes of psychological warfare. Rebecca bid with increasing irritation as Amanda matched her, step for step. $15,000, $25,000. Rebecca's composure cracking. $35,000. 7 times the assessed value. She half-turned, trying to identify her opponent. Amanda's face was a mask. $45,000, Rebecca finally announced, a note of finality in her voice. The auctioneer looked to Amanda. Amanda shook her head, just as planned. Rebecca's triumphant smile as she went to finalize her purchase was almost comical. I slipped out before she could spot me. Meeting Amanda at her car, she laughed. "Did you see her face? She thinks she won." "She did win that parcel," I said, unfolding the county map on my lap. I circled Lot 23. The second, larger parcel, adjoining my property on the eastern side. The one we'd actually come to bid on. What she doesn't know is that we never intended to buy it. I pointed to the circled parcel. While she was focused on blocking my access from the south, I just secured a completely different entry point for half the price. And the best part? Her $45,000 just established a ridiculously high comparative value for essentially worthless land. As we drove back to my farm, I saw Rebecca standing triumphantly beside the gate she thought she now legally owned, speaking animatedly on her phone, probably to her attorney. The look on Rebecca's face when she realized she just spent $45,000 driving up the price of land I never intended to buy was almost worth the dying crops. Almost. But phase 2 of my plan would make this look like a warm-up exercise. The chessboard was set. The pieces were moving, and Rebecca Steele had just castled directly into my trap.